picture this. You're sitting in a taxi on an elevated highway in Taipei, listening to soft music on a gray winter morning. Through your window, you notice something unusual. A passenger plane, banking sharply, flying far too low. Before you can process what you're seeing, the aircraft's left wing slices through your taxi. This isn't a nightmare. This is what happened on February 4th, 2015. And it was all caught on dashcam. We're about to explore how a routine flight turned into a disaster so preventable that investigators would later prove the plane could have saved itself. So stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for extreme turbulence, because this is Final Boarding Call. Hello, and welcome to Final Boarding Call. I am your disaster-obsessed host, Alice.
And I'm just Zach, sitting here ready to hear a story. Help my mind unwind.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's what plane disasters do. They really help you unwind.
Honestly, because it's not anybody's average everyday life, besides maybe ours.
That's fair.
I don't know. I don't have to put too much thought in it. I can still relax, and it doesn't build up any kind of anxiety in me.
No, I love that. Well, if you're like Zach, before we dive in, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we always appreciate it if you tell a friend. It's our favorite little present. Sources for today's episode. You know I've got a Mayday Air Disasters. Season 17, Episode 7. Mentour pilot does an amazing video on this. That's on YouTube. And then the Taiwan Aviation Safety Council's final investigation report as well. And there are some more. All the sources are listed in the show notes. So,
Guys, I just want you to know, my wife is so cute. When she did her she was holding an invisible air horn.
oh, I know. All right.
Adorable.
That's me. That's me. February 4th. 2015 dawned gray and cool over Taipei, Taiwan's bustling capital. At Songshan Airport, nestled right in the city's heart, surrounded by high-rise apartments and crossed by elevated highways, TransAsia Airways Flight 235 was preparing for a 50-minute hop to Kinmen Island. 58 people were boarding that morning. Among the 53 passengers were 31 mainland Chinese tourists from Kinmen on a 6-day tour of Taiwan. So they were families, they were couples, they were friends, and they were all traveling together. So they were people who had saved for this vacation, and they were doing some sightseeing. Among the passengers was Dr. Liu Chao, who's a medical doctor who ran a practice on Kinmen Island. He'd originally been scheduled on a later flight, but a few open seats meant that he could catch this earlier departure. As he settled into his seat, he grabbed a newspaper to catch up on the day's events, a routine that he followed on every TransAsia flight. The airline service had always been very good, according to him, and it's why he flew this airline. 2 flight attendants completed the manifest. So we have 3 pilots that are in the cockpit. We have Captain Liao Jianzong, who is 42 years old. He was the pilot in command. He has 4,914 flight hours. His co-pilot, who is actually also a captain. So we've got boom, captain. And this is Captain Liu Zhuzhong, 45, with 6,922 flight hours. And this actually is not an unusual practice when airlines don't have enough first officers.
They just stack pilots?
Correct.
Or captains, rather.
So you can't make a first officer replace a captain, but you can make a captain replace a first officer.
Sounds like they should stop giving out promotions like candy on Halloween.
Oh my God. Okay, but there was also a third person in the cockpit.
Captain.
This is observer pilot Hung Peng-jung, who's a 63-year-old senior captain. So, boom. And
three captains.
Yes. And you guys, he has over 16,000 flight hours.
And
this guy is senior.
Everybody needs to get their hours, so they all have to fly. But I was like, because we're telling a story of something, I would assume, bad that happens.
No, the flight lands normally, and that's the end of the episode.
Just because you know somebody with way more experience was there, you're just like, why wasn't he flying?
Well, I'll tell you why, because he was actually in training from an older model aircraft that they had been using, which was an ATR 72-500, to this new plane, the ATR 72-600. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with that aircraft, neither was I. The ATR 72 is a twin-engine turboprop, which means it's got the spinny propellers on the outside of it.
That was cute.
The look you just gave me. Okay, so it's smaller than a Boeing 737. It's perfect for short flights between nearby cities, right? So it's a cute little commuter plane. And it's equipped with something called an automatic takeoff power control system, or ATPCS. And this is essentially a safety net during takeoff. If one of the engines fails, the system automatically feathers that engine's propeller. So it rotates the blade's edge on to minimize drag.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it simultaneously increases power on the good engine by 10%.
Only 10%, even for takeoff?
Hey, so together,
The math ain't mathing to me, but I like it.
These actions give the aircraft the best possible chance of climbing safely on just one engine. So, hey, they mathed it, so we don't have to math it. We're going to trust them. Before every takeoff, pilots must arm the ATPCS. If it won't arm, that's your first warning that something might be wrong with the system. On the newer ATR 72-600 model, which is the plane that we're flying today, the rules are crystal clear. If ATPCS won't arm, abort the takeoff, return to the gate, no exceptions.
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense, 100%. The first two flights of Captain Liao's day went perfectly. By mid-morning, Flight 235 was ready for its third sector. At 10:45 a.m., they requested pushback and they were cleared for departure through a right-hand turn, climbing to 5,000 feet. The cockpit voice recorder reveals something concerning. There's no indication that the crew discussed emergency procedures before takeoff, which is a fundamental breach of standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just like the three of them were having a great old time in there, but they didn't do that, and they should have. Then, during taxi, something else happened that sets the stage ultimately for disaster. Observer pilot Hung, who's doing transition training, right? He begins an impromptu training session with the first officer, discussing the differences between the two aircraft variants entirely from the communication loop, which is a violation of sterile cockpit procedures that leaves him taxiing in silence while the other two pilots basically are chit-chatting behind him.
About his next math test.
Yeah. Yes. The aircraft lines up on runway 10, and at 10:51, Flight 235 begins its takeoff roll. Just 4 seconds later, The pilot monitoring calls out the ATPCS hasn't armed. Both pilots verbally acknowledge takeoff inhibit, which on the ATR 72600 means stop the takeoff immediately, pull the throttles back, and return to gate. And then Captain Liao says, okay, continue the takeoff.
He must have missed his training session.
Oh, boy. Okay, so obviously, guys, we have a miscommunication in the cockpit. However, the ATPCS suddenly arms a few seconds later. So
okay, good sign.
That's a great sign. Whatever intermittent fault was preventing it briefly resolves, and the takeoff proceeds. But this moment reveals something critical about Captain Liao's decision-making. He's already violated a fundamental safety rule before the aircraft even leaves the ground. The aircraft accelerates normally, reaches rotation speed, and at 10:52 a.m. becomes airborne. Landing gear retracts, the aircraft enters a climbing right turn, right? So
beautiful.
Totally, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, guys. However, it's not going to stay gorgeous. About 40 seconds into the flight, as the tower instructs them to switch radio frequencies, there's a brief mechanical noise. A bleed air valve closing, immediately followed by the master warning alarm. The aircraft is climbing through 1,200 feet. Deep inside the auto feather unit on engine number 2, a connector with microscopic cracks in its soldering has just failed completely, sending false signals that engine 2 is failing. The ATPCS responds exactly as it's designed. It automatically feathers engine 2's propellers, and it increases power to engine 1 to compensate. On the engine warning display, a clear message appears in front of both pilots. Engine 2, flame out at takeoff. Like,
so just
boom.
When it says flame out, does that mean that it shut itself off or that it caught on fire?
No, shut off. It's like it just means like it's donezo. It is no longer doing
combusting the
thing.
combustions.
Mm-hmm. Everything, Zach, every instrument, every indication, every system is telling them that engine 2 has failed. And if there is one thing that we know about this plane, because we reviewed it 45 seconds ago, it's that that's not a massive issue. Yeah. This plane has been designed to compensate for
it lost 50% of its power, it gives another 10%.
Yes, it is designed to fly safely on one engine. But that is not what's about to happen. Captain Liao announces that he's taking control, and he disconnects the autopilot, immediately increasing his workload. The ATR 72600's autopilot is actually specifically designed to handle engine failures automatically.
Which is cool.
I
will give it that.
So cool. By disconnecting it, he just made the situation way more harder than it needed to be.
Now he is in control, which makes him feel good. I get that. I'm a control freak. But now he has to do all the work that a computer could have done.
Now wait until you hear what he does next. He announces that he is going to pull back the throttle on engine number 1.
Wait, what?
The good engine. That's the good one.
So he misunderstood or confused?
The only engine producing thrust right now, the only one that is keeping them alive, is engine 1. The pilot monitoring responds urgently, calling for a cross-check. Which is like, say what? What did you just say? But before he can finish, Captain Liao has already pulled back the power lever on engine 1. The aircraft is now flying on basically no thrust from either engine.
It's a glider right now.
Engine 2 has been auto-feathered It's producing no thrust, but it's still doing that like
It's rotating.
natural rotation. Exactly. And engine 1 has just been throttled back to near idle. They're coasting, Zach. And that's not good. The aircraft continues its left turn. Its altitude now is at 1,400 feet. Its airspeed is only 106 knots and decreasing. Leo tries to work through the engine failure checklist, and he's methodically calling out each item. But Liao responds that everything's okay, and he does not add power. He should be advancing the throttle on engine 1 to maximum. Instead, it remains at reduced power. If you are screaming at home, same.
I feel in this situation that, granted, hindsight, we get to have that all the time on this show, but in my head, as we're this far into the story, I'm just like, I would leave both levers all the way up for maximum power.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
One of them's not working, but that's okay. It can still not work with the lever all the way up. The one that does work also needs to be all the way up.
The pilot monitoring glances at the airspeed indicator, and his voice is urgent as he calls for a speed check because their airspeed has dropped to only 101 knots.
That's slow.
You're going to stall. And Captain Liao pulls the throttle on the good engine back even farther. At 10:53, 1 minute and 30 seconds after takeoff, the aircraft reaches its highest altitude, which is only 1,630 feet. That is as high as they will get because without thrust, physics is going to take over. The aircraft begins to descend. Seconds later, the first stall warning sounds, accompanied by the stick shaker, which we have learned about in some of our other... Yes. And it violently vibrates, guys. This is not like a phone in your pocket. This is like jigga, 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 crazy vibrations happening. The pilot flying calls out, "Terrain ahead." Like, yes, terrain is coming up. And this poor observer in the back, I feel so bad for him. So observer Hung warns that they are too low. Another stall warning comes up. The stick shaker is now just nonstop shaking.
Going nuts.
Yes. The pilot monitoring shouts desperately for throttle, finally explicitly calling for power. Captain Liao increases power on engine 2, the already failed engine, and he reduces power even further on engine 1. Yes. Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I can't help, and I always feel bad because I know that I don't know there's going to be death because we've had stories where people didn't die as well, but it just almost feels like this is on purpose. I don't know how a trained pilot with, I can't remember if you said 4,000 or 6,000 hours, whatever. Either way, that's a lot of training hours. How do you accidentally pull it back 3 times instead of pushing forward?
It's crazy. So we will obviously get into this because the investigators will have the exact same questions as you, Zach. And it's about to get even crazier because Captain Liao makes his final fatal mistake. He announces he's going to completely shut down engine 1. The good engine, the only engine that could possibly save them. At 10:53, the pilot monitoring makes a Mayday call, but they're still on tower frequency, and another aircraft transmits simultaneously. So the controller doesn't properly hear this emergency. Observer Hung's voice is desperate. How did it become like this? When Captain Liao hears this, when he finally understands that they have no thrust from either engine, he starts repeating one phrase over and over. restart the engine.
So it's like he really did just have them mixed up and thought that he needed to shut down one.
He says this 7 times in a row in the few seconds that they have left. The aircraft descends through 1,000 feet, then 500 feet. Oh boy, so engine restarts take like 30 to 45 seconds, and they have less than 20 seconds. At 10:54, 2 minutes and 48 seconds after takeoff, Captain Lao Chen Sound says his final words. Wow, pulled back the wrong side throttle.
Indeed.
In that moment, he understood. He realized what he'd done, but that understanding came too late. The aircraft enters a steep left bank, 10 degrees, quickly increasing to 45 and then 80. They are in a full aerodynamic stall with no engine power, no altitude to recover. Before them is the Keelung River, crossed by the Handong Viaduct, an elevated highway carrying morning traffic. On that viaduct, taxi driver Mr. Cheng and his 2 passengers are thinking about ordinary things when a dash cam in the car behind them captures something truly insane. The aircraft appears in frame, flying almost level, but with its left wing dipped at an extreme angle, clearing an apartment building by feet. Then it rolls sharply, nearly 90 degrees. The wing's leading edge strikes the taxi, just the edge of the wing. The impact tears away the outboard section of the wing as it continues through the concrete guardrail, and it scatters debris across 5 lanes. The aircraft continues to roll, becoming inverted. It strikes the river upside down at 10:54, breaking into 2 main pieces. From master warning to impact only took 104 seconds.
Wow. I want some clarification real quick, because you said that the dash cam showed the plane come around almost level, but with an extreme dip.
Oh, you're going to see. You're going to see because I'm going to show you. This dash cam footage.
I just don't know how it can be level and extremely angled.
So this is what you got to see, because this is so crazy, Zach. Okay, well, there's the plane in the river, but...
Wowzers. Where's the cab?
The cab's right there.
Oh, okay.
And it hit the cab.
It was an extra tall. It was almost like a little bus, that cab.
Well, yeah, we're not in the U.S.
I know. I was thinking of it. And I mean, I know it only had 2 passengers, so I was picturing a regular, like, 4-seater vehicle.
Yeah.
And it was not quite that.
No. The Keelung River at the crash site is about 50 meters wide, with a strong current and murky water. Not the best for a rescue mission.
Yeah, that's almost no hope.
The wreckage was partially submerged, and it was broken into sections, and it had people trapped inside. The first firefighters to arrive did not have proper water rescue equipment. Some stripped off their gear and they just swam into the current, risking their own lives to reach the aircraft. About 3 made it and began pulling people from the water. 35 minutes after the impact, rescue boats arrived with divers who were prepared, but they were searching in near zero visibility. Most survivors had been seated in the rear section, which had broken away and remained partially above the water, creating an air pocket.
Perfect.
Yep. Dr. Liu Chao remembers water where my shoes are. The plane was sinking deeper and deeper into the river, the temperature shocking his system. He couldn't hear anything because the water actually drowned out all sounds. So how eerie is that?
That's an interesting thought for... I don't know, people undersell water and like ice for snow, avalanches, all of that stuff. It's loud.
Yeah.
a tree falling in the middle of the woods still makes a sound. It turned out.
It does turn out. And then he saw a woman that he thought was a flight attendant, and he told her not to be afraid. And the water level kept rising. Those who survived the impact were now in risk of drowning. Dr. Chow just wanted the doors to open quickly so he could escape. And when rescuers finally reached the fuselage and started pulling people out, he was among the 15 who made it to the riverbank alive. That moment of confusion, the cognitive disconnect between what should be and what was, would end up haunting him long after the rescue. Flight attendant Hong Ching-ya was pulled from the rear section. She would later recount the stall warnings, the violent banking, the cold shock of hitting the water, and the desperate scramble to escape before the cabin flooded. On the elevated highway above, Mr. Chang, our taxi driver, and his 2 passengers were extracted from what remained of this taxi. Here's what's insane. They all walked away with minor injuries after their taxi got hit by a plane. By an airplane. The wing had sliced through the taxi's roof, but the impact angle and the vehicle structure had protected them just enough.
Yeah, I'm watching the video. It was almost like the tip of the wing came down and like only caught the last like 25% of the roof.
Yeah.
And kind of ripped it over a couple lanes.
Yep.
But not full side impact that would rip everything to shreds or cause a massive jolt.
It's crazy. By afternoon, cranes were positioned to lift large sections of the fuselage from the water. The flight recorders were recovered, and remarkably, they were undamaged. The final toll. We had 58 people on board. 43 died. 15 survivors had injuries. Some of them had significant ones. And all 3 pilots perished. 1 flight attendant died. And among the dead were 28 of the 31 Chinese tourists.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The last victim's body wasn't recovered until February 12th.
Jeez.
Which is a week after this.
Yeah, because you said it was the 4th.
The body was carried downstream by the river's current. The dashcam footage was broadcast worldwide within hours, becoming one of the most widely viewed aviation accident videos ever recorded.
Wow.
Investigators from the Taiwan Aviation Safety Council, joined by French and Canadian representatives, converged on Taipei. Both black boxes yielded crystal clear data. The cockpit voice recorder captured every word, every alarm, every desperate moment, including those devastating last words. The flight data recorder confirmed. Engine 2 had auto-feathered about 36 seconds after takeoff. About 46 seconds later, Engine 1 was shut down manually by the crew.
Mm-hmm.
For the final 90 seconds of the flight, the aircraft had essentially no thrust. They recovered both engines from the river. Deep inside the auto-feather unit on Engine 2, they found a connector with microscopic cracks in its soldering. The lab made cross-sections of the circuit board, and they discovered the faults were possibly related to some form of manufacturing defect. With a broken circuit board, the torque sensor couldn't do its job. Even though the engine was turning, the sensor couldn't detect any torque. So the system automatically feathered the propeller.
Technologia.
This is called an uncommanded auto-feather event, a known issue in the ATR fleet, but completely survivable if it's handled properly.
Or not at all.
The ATPCS, that's exactly it. Literally hands off. Just like let the plane do the thing that the plane was meant to do. Woof. The ATPCS had worked perfectly. The problem was the signals were false and the crew's response was catastrophic. The equipment malfunctions alone don't crash airplanes. Investigators needed to understand why an experienced captain had shut down the wrong engine, which I think is the question all of us are asking on this episode.
Yeah, I think
Like,
we would
how?
need to hear his tone at the end and just be like, oh my, I
How
did the
did
wrong
this?
engine.
Woof. What investigators uncovered would shake Taiwan's aviation industry to its core and reveal just how preventable this disaster had been. They discovered that in 2009, Liao had applied to another airline for Airbus training. His reports showed that he was falling behind the aircraft, which means he was struggling with procedures, showing poor situational awareness, and unable to prioritize tasks under stress. The airline actually stopped his training in March 2010.
They just called it. We're like, you're
They
not
called
going to
him.
make it here. I'm sorry.
5 months later, Liao applied to TransAsia and was accepted. He flew successfully as a first officer on the ATR 72-500 for about 4 years. In April 2014, he began command upgrade training. Once again, very serious problems emerged. TransAsia didn't follow its own procedures for command upgrades. When Liao took his simulator check, he failed. Incomplete knowledge of procedures, failure to apply full thrust during single engine operations, incomplete knowledge of engine fire procedures, and poor cockpit management. But the review board gave him a second chance. He passed on the second attempt, and he began flying as a captain.
Well, I don't mean to crush anybody's dreams, but if you can't pass it, then you can't pass it.
That seems like a lot of areas to have issues in.
It's just a person with all of these people's lives in their hands is not someone that I think should be able to scrape by. You have to just do it right and know what you're doing.
It's really scary. Well, when TransAsia transitioned to the ATR 72-600, Liao's conversion training instructor wrote something ominous. May need extra training. And specifically wrote down, check EFATO, which is the EFATO procedures, the engine failure after takeoff procedures. The exact emergency that would kill him and 72 others only 4 months later.
Wow.
Despite this warning, his training was approved.
Marked complete.
But investigators discovered something even more damning. They interviewed other TransAsia pilots and found widespread confusion about critical differences between the 500 and the 600 models. On the older 500 models, if ATPCS wouldn't arm, pilots were actually permitted to take off anyway.
Interesting.
But on the newer 600 models, the manufacturer had changed their rules.
Like
we said, won't arm, abort the takeoff, no exceptions. TransAsia had never properly communicated this change, though, which is a problem. Like we've said before, pilots can't know not to do something if you don't tell them.
But there is a manual that they're all supposed to read. Like, did you read the book?
Okay, well, most pilots had transferred from the 500 fleet, and they assumed the old procedure still applied. And exactly what happened with Captain Liao and Liu that morning. This explained why both had acknowledged takeoff, inhibit, but continued anyway, because that was the standard practice on the 500. Then came the investigation's most damning finding. So we haven't even gotten to the really juicy part. The Civil Aeronautics Administration announced mandatory proficiency tests for all TransAsia ATR pilots on engine out procedures. 10 pilots failed completely. 19 others did not show up. All were immediately suspended.
It's like the SATs. If I don't show up, I get a perfect score, right?
It's completely insane. So basically what this means is that there is a systematic failure across the entire airline.
I should say so.
Yeah. TransAsia had been operating with dozens of pilots who didn't properly understand how to handle one of the most common emergencies in aviation. And perhaps the most devastating discovery came when investigators programmed a flight simulator with the exact conditions of Flight 235.
And just let go of everything and let it fly.
Oh, Zach. Following the automated checklist that appeared on screen, the simulator pilots secured the failed engine and they continued climbing safely on one engine. The plane handled it perfectly, exactly as it was designed to do. Then the investigators tried something else. They reset the simulation and they simply did nothing. No pilot input at all. No reaction to the warning. They just let the autopilot continue flying. Incredibly, even with zero pilot intervention, the aircraft continued climbing and it would have flown perfectly fine. So here is what the investigator said. This is a quote. "The aircraft was designed to handle that situation as long as we don't do anything wrong." Guess what? Somebody did something wrong.
They did everything wrong.
Oh, man. The automation, the advanced technology, it worked perfectly, and it would have kept all of those people alive. Instead, Captain Liao had actively intervened, turning off the systems that were designed to help him, shutting down the only engine that was keeping them alive. Investigators came to understand what happened in his mind during those critical seconds, and it's actually a phenomenon called change blindness. So change blindness occurs when people are focused or fixated on one task and they completely miss what would normally be a very obvious change in their environment. The captain had taken manual control of the aircraft, disconnecting the autopilot, and dramatically increasing his own workload. He was multitasking. He was flying. He was navigating. He was trying to process an emergency. And in that cognitive overload, he became blind to what every instrument was clearly telling him. Even when the first officer tried to warn him, "No, wait, cross-check," the captain's perception told him that he was doing the right thing. He was so fixated on his belief that the left engine had failed that he could not see that it was the right one.
We are our own worst enemy.
It was not stupidity.
No, I mean, that was just a sheer mistake that he clearly had, even in the reports, he had issues under pressure.
Yeah.
And this is immense pressure. You have all these people's lives at stake, and he couldn't handle that.
It's so true. And this is a phenomenon that we will see in other episodes as we continue this podcast.
Well, and this is the kind of thing that no matter training, there's always going to be things that slip through the cracks. So no matter what the rules or the training are, this is the kind of thing that you'll see forever. Hopefully not often, but this is the kind of thing that will come up.
So true. In June 2016, the Aviation Safety Council released its final report. The immediate cause was the captain's incorrect response, right? Which, duh. But the report identified cascading organizational failures, inadequate pilot screening and training, insufficient oversight of command upgrades, poor communication between aircraft variants, and a safety culture that allowed an inadequately qualified pilot to be responsible for passenger lives. The immediate aftermath sent shockwaves through Taiwan's aviation industry. This was TransAsia's second fatal ATR accident in 7 months. Ruh-roh.
That's less than ideal.
Public trust evaporated, bookings plummeted, and on February 11th, TransAsia offered compensation. They offered $14.9 million per victim, which in the U.S. is $475,000.
That's better than many that we have heard for.
It is, and it includes an emergency relief and funeral expenses. Not all of the families accepted. For many, particularly the families of the 28 Chinese tourists, no amount of money could compensate for loved ones who had simply been on vacation and never come home. Some rejected the offer and they pursued independent legal action. In April 2018, the Taipei District Court ruled in one such case, ordering TransAsia to pay $13.3 million to the children of a passenger who died in the crash. Other proceedings continued outside public view, and, they were settled for undisclosed amounts. TransAsia itself was fined a lot of money, around $3 million, which I guess would be not very much if we think that 14.9 is 475K in US dollars. Then 3 million is like
Low.
That's low. That's not much. For leaking confidential investigation information to the media in an apparent attempt to influence public perception. Naughty, naughty. And the airline did try to rebuild. They created new training programs, a dedicated training center, new simulators. Captains had to retake their proficiency checks.
Every 4 days.
But it absolutely was not enough. So on November 22nd, 2016, just 21 months after Flight 235, TransAsia Airways announced it was ceasing operations indefinitely. An airline that had operated for 27 years disappeared because its safety culture could not survive 2 preventable accidents. So there you go. It didn't do great. For the 15 survivors, the scars remained long after the headlines faded. Many of them developed PTSD and never flew again. Dr. Leo Chow returned to his medical practice on Kinmen, but that moment of confusion would surface in his memory at unexpected times. And today, a memorial marks the crash site along the Keelung River. Families gather there each February 4th. And the dashcam footage, which I recommend all of you watch because it is insane, it has been watched by millions of people. The wreckage of the taxi remains on display at a transportation museum. Bucket list! The ATR-72 continues to fly safely worldwide. The uncommanded auto feather issue was addressed through improvements, and the lessons from Flight 235 made the entire fleet safer. So this is kind of a crazy one. I mean, those final words of the captain.
Just realizing, I messed up.
Oh my God. The investigators listening to that black box audio recording must have absolutely shit their pants because that is insane to hear.
I will say, though, a lot of respect from me, when somebody just recognizes this is my fault. I did this.
Yeah, it's a little too late to apologize, in the words of, what's that one Republic? I don't even know.
I agree. The damage had already been done, but I can appreciate when somebody just recognizes this was on me.
Well, that was on him, and that is our story for today, Zach.
Well,
yeah, I know. It's a rough one. We've been serving up a couple rough ones. I'll need to do sort of a lighter one here at some point because these have just been, you guys, these have been heavy. We need a hero pilot again. I need another hero pilot.
We need another
story.
FedEx.
God, I know. Or a Denny Fitch.
Everybody loves
He's
Denny
great.
Fitch.
Everybody loves Denny Fitch. Okay. Anyway, if you're still listening to this, God bless you. You can reach out to us at finalboardingcallpodcast@gmail.com. We're on all the socials, but like more of a metaphorical, not like a physical.
That's
there.
a lie. I checked that social today on Instagram.
Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Reach out to us. Zach will see it. And join us next time when we will be exploring another transportation disaster story. Until then, remember to stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for the unexpected, because not every trip reaches its final destination.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, friends.